Mate, it's the Korean in me. That's what it is. Always
Yeah.
being on time. Anyway,
Oh yeah.
thank you very much. Anyway, thank you very much for joining us, everybody. Welcome
It's
to
almost AA style intro to the stream. We just like start talking before the stream gets going.
I know. Shut up! I mean my bloody introduction. Fuck's sake. Thank you. My name is Chamchi Gimbap. I am the political fish, and welcome to
Spoon.
today's fuck off part-time fish, part-time spoon. All right.
You're the
Here
whole
we.
stew.
What?
You're the whole stew.
I know, right? I know. So we have a very special guest today. His name is Sam. We go way back. He's actually infamous online for left-wing politics. He was ejected from a Trump rally. Can you please say for me, after you've introduced yourself, of course, can you please say to me again, or say to the viewers exactly what you said when you were rejected out by that by those harsh security guards?
I actually got to be honest. The Worcester Police Department and the security guards the DCU center hired a lot kinder than Trump supporters. So if I had to choose between being ejected by cops or being ejected by Trump supporters, cops all the way, man.
I'm saying something in the States now.
Sorry, what was that?
I'm not saying something in the States.
Yeah, seriously, that's no fucking joke. I am Sam, writer under the name of Mulch Schlitzman. Chemchi and I, we met up when we were both teaching in the city about damn near a decade ago, and this motherfucker has not aged a day.
Don't make his head even bigger, for fuck's sake.
He knows. He sees himself in the mirror with his like what quadruple black belt, septuple black belt. Can't get up out of bed without just throwing 5 dudes out the motherfucking window. But yeah, so I big time Bernie supporter. Trump came to my motherfucking city, and all of the activists in the various left-wing circles planned planned events which were really well executed, really well pulled off, did not get a lick of media attention, which I'm kind of frustrated with. Even
from a lot of the left-wing media, because I only heard about this when Chamchi mentioned it to me once.
Yeah. I'm in a thing right now with an Australian woman who'd heard about me from an Australian TV program called Planet America, which I have to check out because that sounds excellent. But
cheeseburgers and guns, mate. Cheeseburgers and guns.
That is
with a healthy dose of bourbon.
I mean, yeah, that's not on me though.
Right. Okay. So please shout again what you said when you're being ejected, because this is fucking brilliant.
I have a it's not a pet peeve. It is a feral fucking untamed peeve. Anytime a rich person goes after money given to children or single mothers, or really any person that has less than them. And oops, it fell out of my ear, pussy. He is the cancer that is killing democracy.
That's marvelous. That's marvelous.
It was true when I said it. It is
true now. It's true now more than
even
ever.
More true every single day. Every time he opens his awful fucking annoying orange mouth, everything he says just proves that I was right. And I'm not used to being right. This is a new experience for me.
So Matt, introduce yourself, mate. That's Sam's introduction. So Matt, introduce yourself.
So Cam in the side chat says Forever 29.
I know, right?
I am I mean, I've been on here before. You know who I am.
I
My
know.
interest in US politics stems from my work with a guy called Drew Mochak on a podcast called The Game Is Rigged. It's myself, a sort of democratic socialist, borderline social democrat, alongside a libertarian sort of center-right kind of guy from California. And we spend a good hour of our 3-hour podcast talking US politics, and we get into the weeds a little bit on that every week. So
you're actually doing a podcast later on today, is that right?
Yes, I am. I'm recording it today at 5 o'clock UK time if people are interested, but I realize that probably clashes with something Angels is doing. So by all means, go to her before me.
Oh, of course. I think she's going live at 4 p.m. this afternoon.
Yeah.
So guys, if you're not subscribed to Angels or The Game Is Rigged, obviously subscribe.
Yeah. Game Is Rigged is an audio podcast. It's not on YouTube, just so you know. If you try and look for it on YouTube, unfortunately, it's not on there.
It's hosted by people that had their eyes eaten by rats, apparently. So.
Are those metaphorical rats or literal?
I don't know.
Well, if you could say that cancer is a rat, it's true in my case, I suppose.
Yeah. But anyway, let's move on. Thank you to everybody in the side chat for joining us. We got Cameron Hickman and Bob Elvis, who says, I love Trump. Really? Drain the swamp. Well, yeah, he did drain the swamp. Then he filled it up with feces, didn't he? I mean,
Bubble Viz is the guy who on a stream not long ago on Swiss's channel started a conversation about what was it? It was ethnostates. So I mean, for fuck's sake, this is I'm hardly surprised.
An ethnostate's just a place you can't get any decent fucking food. Like, okay,
true that.
Move to America.
True that.
Have to survive on cheeseburgers and gun burgers.
Now this is literally like one of the oldest running jokes that we've ever had, right? Do you want to while we're still warming up, we're at the magic number now, we're at 10, right? So just quickly, can you do us the cheeseburgers and gun joke?
There is no deodorant in South Korea. Korean men don't smell. I don't know what magic they do, but
it's witchcraft, mate. Pure witchcraft.
Solid, just shamanistic witchcraft. That's the gift of King Sejong that nobody talks about. Like, everybody wants to talk about Hangul and how it's an amazing alphabet, and it really is. But the fact that King Sejong managed to negotiate a deal with the devil where no one in Korea smells bad is, just one of the treasures that UNESCO doesn't know how to categorize.
What is that? Like, why is that? That's weird, though. That's in some ways almost bizarre.
Like a fucking witchcraft, mate. Fucking witchcraft.
So, when I was living in Pohang 8 years ago,
South Korea. That's where I live, by the way.
Hi, everybody. We're the country of K-pop.
Sorry about that, by the way. We're trying to sort out, a letter of apology to the rest of the world about K-pop, but it's still in writing.
Just leave other genres alone, please. Just don't hurt anyone else.
Go on. Cheeseburgers and guns, mate. Cheeseburgers and guns.
K country is going to be the next new hotness. Anyway, I brought what I thought was going to be a year's supply of deodorant. It turns out a summer in an actual tropical country will rather deplete my stores quickly. So I had one weekend where I was going to all of the major stores in the city trying to find deodorant. I couldn't find shit. I found eventually like a tiny travel size container of women's deodorant, which I had to buy because otherwise I was going to smell like whiskey and death. So I put that on one day and I went to class, and one of my students gave me the, "Oh, teacher, you smell." I was like, "What do I smell like? Is it a bad smell?" Like, "Oh, no, not bad. You smell
like American.
You smell American. It's a good smell." It's like, what the fuck does an American smell like? Cheeseburgers and guns? I don't know.
Cheeseburgers, guns, and money. I'd say you should add that one to the list.
All right, okay. So now we've oh shit, we've dropped two watchers. Like we're at the magic number. Then.
Don't monitor it too heavy. You'll get distracted.
I know. Okay, so now let's get to the meat of the issue. Right, we're 12 minutes in. Okay, so when I got into politics, it was mainly I was talking about this to Sam earlier. You know, you ask yourself a question, right? And it's a very, very simple question I ask myself: is why is everything so shit? Why is inequality got so bad? Why are these things happening in some of the richest societies in the world, such as America and then the UK, and the Gini coefficient is always going higher. But obviously, with the simplest questions, you also end up with the most complicated of answers. So in studying the history of politics and the politics of history, especially even finding my own like pigeonhole and saying that yes, I am on the left, this is something that represents me. Now I have something to fight for, right? I'm interested to know what you guys think of the state of the left now, and if you think that there is a future for the left, especially with Cortez in New York, and of course the governor in Florida very, very recently.
And there's been a new one this week as well, hasn't there?
Yes, indeed.
And
of course, what's happening with Jeremy Corbyn and the left movement in the UK. So I don't know who wants to go first on that whole proposition.
Dan, go first. I think most people know.
Oh no, he's actually just giving it to you. Actually, so go on, Matt. You
fair
go
enough. First. My worry with this whole discussion is trying to compare the US left to the UK left, because I think that they're very different animals for a couple of reasons. One being the Overton window. Although we complain in this country that the Overton window is so far to the right, the Overton window in the States is even further. So what they are calling socialist is what we would call the sort of soft left. I mean, Ocasio-Cortez, even out of the new the new slate of the left, the younger slate of the left, is considered pretty extreme in the US by quite a lot of people, compared to, say, Andrew Gillum or even Ayanna Pressley. But over here, I would say she may be borderline moderate Labour. So we have to bear that in mind. And I think comparing the two things is not necessarily helpful, because also their party system for their left-wing party works in a very different way. They have the whole local and national party structure, whereas we don't do that here. They have primaries, whereas we don't have them here. It's a very, very different system. But I think the left...
that, Matt, before you carry on, there is a reason why I do compare the two. But once you both finish, then I'll tell you exactly why. And it has historical roots there. But go on, carry on.
I think the left in America has the potential to be really transformative. I worry that too much emphasis is put on Bernie Sanders because his age, and I know people don't like to be ageist, but it's a real factor with him because he's not getting any younger, and for him to be president in 2020, he might serve one term, maybe two at a push, but it's going to be difficult. So I think too much emphasis on him is dangerous. I think we need to be looking for a new leader on the left in the States. But also, I mean, the fact is, in the US, we're dragging the center to the left. We're dragging those who are corporatists now are starting to come around to leftist ideas in the States. It's taking a long time, and it is baby steps all the time, but it's happening. I mean, Medicare for all. How much of an issue is Medicare for all? There was one Democrat in California in the most recent primary race there that didn't run on it. That's it. There was one left. Nobody else in California thinks it's politically expedient to not run on Medicare for all anymore. I mean, even Obama has now finally started talking about Medicare for all in his most recent speech. This was it on Thursday. So Yeah, I mean that the fact that that's now a political issue, and that's only taken a couple of years, but we need to be careful, I think, not to be too upset if things don't happen how we want them to happen as quickly as we'd like. We need to keep pushing and not to be too disheartened if things don't go well in, say, November, for example. Say if, I don't know, for whatever reason, if DeSantis beats Gillum, which I think is a long shot, but it's possible, we can't lose heart. And I am slightly concerned that we're investing a bit too much.
Yeah, the really depressing part about being a progressive American is realizing that America cannot be the moral lighthouse by which the rest of the world sets its course anymore. The simple fact is, I'm pretty sure for the last, like, since the 1980s, we have been primarily a one-party country run by two flavors of motherfucker. One flavor of motherfucker, which wants to see the poor die in the street, and the other flavor of motherfucker who feels bad when they see the poor die in the street. That, of course, being the Democrats. Yeah, Matt, you managed to just like lock on, dead on accurate, perfectly express it. It is, we've got a corporate, like, we've got two flavors of corporate party. And that's been a problem since before Citizens United, where it was decided that spending unlimited amounts of dark money in an election is free speech, which I've got some strong feelings about. But yeah, the progressive wing in America is not the Democratic Party. It is everyone the Democratic Party is trying to silence. And
but I think it's becoming the Democratic Party, isn't it? I mean, like, we can see this year with some of the adoptions that the DNC's taken on, some of the candidates that are running. It's becoming the Democratic Party as much as they resist.
Well, we would hope so, surely.
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely the goal, and it's the like, much credit to the Democrats in the trenches that are doing the work to try and pull the Overton window back left. America is really like, basically the progressive history of America is a series of concessions between millionaires and the people who want to kill the millionaires. People in America talk a lot about, like, the New Deal and the brief window wherein it was not crushing to be poor in America as like a high tide of socialist sentiment. And like, ideally with Cortez, is that's the kind of Democrat we're heading back to. I don't necessarily believe that is the case. I think,
Really?
Yeah, I think the National Party apparatus is a meat grinder by which young idealists manage to, like, get jobs that pay sub-minimum wage and then work themselves to death and burn out.
This is where I would disagree with Sam, and I would disagree with Matt, and how you were saying before that there was no parallels between the UK and the US, and I'm saying that there is.
I mean, there are parallels, but you can't compare the two directly. I mean, there are parallels,
of course. But we're down to the single state socialist situation. For someone to, or for any government to survive in a socialist situation, it's impossible within a single state, right? So this has been going through and through. I mean, you can talk about Venezuela, for instance. It's I know I don't like talking about it when it comes to socialism, and is not really comparable, but it's trying to serve its people. It's trying to use its oil to serve the people, right? That's what it's trying to do. But through corruption and other external forces, it will never survive, right? So, for instance, if we look at the UK and where we're going forwards with the Jeremy Corbyn Socialist Project, for instance, okay, now we won't be able to survive on our own, and we need someone in the US to help us along, and we can actually, not just trade together, but actually swap ideas and see what's working, what's not working, and And I think this is actually something, you know, when it comes to the state of the left in the future, I think this is something that we can really talk about and maybe cooperate on.
I think seeking cooperation with allies obviously is a sensible thing to do. I think the comparison with Venezuela, I struggle with, because there are many factors there, which is
yes, of course. The only reason that I say that is, I mean, it does my fucking nut in when it's like, oh yeah, Vuvuzela and fucking Cuba and shit. And I mean, it's a fucking bullshit argument, right? But what you must understand is Chavismo and his ideas of what he wanted to do with society, they actually fucking worked, you know.
But then he was an authoritarian. That's not,
of course,
that's
of course, yes, of course. But if we take the policies on themselves, because, you know, we talk about the policies, not the person, right?
Yeah, of course, but that in that specific example, that is relevant because Maduro has stepped in and he's become more authoritarian. So yes, you take the policies, not the person, but also you have to be careful of the path you tread.
Yes, indeed. But the idea of Chavismo taking the oil money and using it for the welfare of society, I think is a great idea. Of course,
that's fine. I mean, what I'm talking about. Unfortunately, the only other countries that have done that are places like Libya when Gaddafi was in charge.
I know.
And this is the thing. It's all these horrible repressive dictators that are doing it rather than actual sensible leftist countries.
Indeed.
That's a big problem.
We need to address the side chat. So there's something that you disagree with, Sam.
Yeah. So shout out to Adam West. I loved you in the original Batman series. The idea that the U.S. is in a position where we are able to run a coup in a foreign country, we're a fucking shambles. Like, you are seeing the American empire decline in real time. America is not attempting a coup in Russia. If we were attempting a coup in Russia, we would have stopped.
America's attempting a coup in Russia. Where on earth has that come from?
Adam West, apparently.
I'm asking Adam West directly where that's come from, because that's crazy.
Yeah, the opposite is actually true. Russia has been interfering with the American electorate system at every given opportunity, which is, you know, not particularly difficult because America has not spent a fucking cent on our electoral system ever since the.
I mean, just look at Kansas. Kansas was a clear example of how that was a mess in the primary there just recently.
Yeah,
it makes your blood boil when you look at that.
It really does. It really does.
Adam West, what I'm going to do is I'm going to make you moderator. So if you've got any evidence or if you've got a link,
sources,
then
is he talking about the pension strife? Because that's wrong if he's referencing that, because that's more to do with Putin's policy himself. I think the Communist Party, the people rallying against that, not anything to do with America.
I think the simple fact is that if America was attempting a coup in Russia, we would have stopped the widespread extermination and oppression of LGBT activists in Russia, which we haven't, because the philosophy that unites Russia and rich Americans is one of white supremacy, which is necessarily anti-LGBT. And the fact that we have not taken a strong stance against Russia's widespread discrimination against gay, trans, non-binary, bisexuals, everyone who's not in a position to make a baby with their white-skinned, blonde-haired spouse is really all the proof you need. That like it's basically that's one of the proxy struggles that the rich is instigating in the poor in order to prevent the class awareness that poor whites need in order to realize that they are getting fucked in this system.
Well, the other evidence that I could use, which has come out in the past few days, to illustrate why America wouldn't be interested in a coup right now of anybody, is the soldiers in Venezuela who were trying to set up a coup against Maduro. The opposition in Venezuela. Well, the opposition in Venezuela apparently directly tried speaking with Trump's administration, and they told them to fuck off.
Yeah, that's
so America isn't interested in supporting anything like this.
Yeah, I think really what we're seeing is basically the end game of the American Empire, which is a military force which occupies and destabilizes a country in order to extract its mineral wealth for the 1%, which is really only American in name. As the Panama paper proves, we really don't know how rich the 1% really fucking is. And they are American only because being American lets them get away with the most shit. And they're going to leave America the minute it is politically expedient for them. We've already seen this happen in motherfuckers like Peter Thiel, who is a literal vampire surviving on the blood of the young. I'm going to dip into Alex Jones for a minute.
Alex Jones. He's a family favorite on this channel, mate.
You just made Cameron really excited, I'm sure.
Yeah, the fact that the American military is an occupying force, it is a colonial force, absolutely correct. The folks in the side chat who are pointing out America's military hegemony, absolutely correct.
I mean, look at the situation in Syria. I mean, America does not want Russia to be successful in Syria because America has its interest in Syria being unstable. Not for any regime to fall or for any new government to take charge. They have an active interest in Syria remaining unstable. So the fact that Russia is actually almost winning the war at this point on Assad's behalf scares the shit out of the US because they do not want a stable Syria.
Yeah, to be totally cynical, America doesn't want a stable anywhere because instability is an excuse for the American capitalist empire to move in.
And Russia is using those tactics on the West now. I mean, they're doing that not militarily; they're doing it through discourse.
Yeah, it's actually rather embarrassing to see a country like Russia, which up until recently was struggling so hard to use our own playbook against us so very well. Like, shout out to the folks in the GRU. You've done a bang up job fucking up our country.
And this is the thing with like the Skripal thing, because Chamchi was looking for parallels. This is the thing with the Skripal situation. One reason I think it was Russia, and everyone goes, oh, but Russian assassins are really, really skillful and they do the job neatly and you wouldn't have a mess like you have now. No, the reason they left the mess behind is because they want people to be confused. They want people to basically eat themselves politically over this. That's the point.
Exactly.
Like, there's evidence now.
I told you Matt was good, mate, didn't I? I told you.
Motherfucker sharp.
And there's evidence now, and this isn't just sort of Trump going on his nutcase nonsense that he does on a regular basis. There's quite a bit of evidence to back this up now, that the Russians are backing the Democrats in the midterms because it would destabilize the US at this point.
Yeah. Exactly.
The fact that the Russians would be backing both sides shouldn't be particularly surprising to anyone who understands the way that the Russians operate. They just want a mess. They're not interested in any one side winning.
Yeah. I'm not convinced that impeaching Trump would, like, I don't think there is a single way America can emerge from this mess with anything short of a fucking catastrophe on its hands. If Trump gets impeached, the dedicated electorate behind him is going to stage a literal civil war. It is going to be the Bundy Ranch occupation times 1,000. At the same time,
Bundy Ranch. Jesus fuck.
I know, right?
I'm all for pointing.
It's like Waco fucking times 10, man. You know, like, Jesus Christ.
I'm all for nut jobs pointing guns at cops, but that takes it a little too far.
I think you're slightly more revolutionary minded than me. I'm too much of a squishy.
We can, we can get into politics. Let's finish this point. We're reaching the halfway point now. What I want to do, okay. So are we finished on our last points with the Trump and?
I think so. Yeah, I think they're done with that.
Okay. What I want to do is I just want to say hello to Cameron. Oh, shit, fucking hell. They just went a bit crazy. So I want to say hello to Bob Elvis, Cameron Hickman. Obviously, Angels was there earlier. Bazaar, comrade, and all you guys that are there listening. This is a special day. He's travelled 6,000 miles to come and talk shit with me online. Right? No, honestly, I did pick Matt specifically out of the bullet chat just because I know of your handle on US politics is quite good, and I knew you two would hit it off. What are you thinking so far, Matt?
Oh, definitely. This guy's interesting.
We're having fun. We're having fun so far.
Oh, for sure.
Matt, if you're ever in a position to run for office in America, please do. We need your expertise. We don't know what the fuck we're doing. Like, goddamn.
Oh God, I wouldn't. That would mean I'd have to live there, and I don't want to do that. Jesus.
Oh, yeah, I couldn't ask you.
Oh, what? Like it's not like England, you know, shit food, worse weather. You know, fuck's sake. Like,
But we have Indian food here. They don't.
Granted,
Valid point.
that is
a very valid point.
I introduced Sam to Indian food. There was a very namaskar. Remember that? Close now. It's dead.
Oh shit!
Yeah,
Really?
it's fucking dead. It's gone.
Damn. Damn. I was gonna say that like basically any country you can live in where a school shooting is a yearly event rather than a weekly, fucking stay there. Stay there.
Australia, everybody. Hi. Like, they still have a gun problem, but they're nowhere near as bad as the US.
Yeah, I actually went to college with someone. I studied to be a teacher. She was studying to be a school nurse. Ended up being killed in the Newton shootings, and yeah, I haven't been able to teach in a school because the panic attacks are just that bad. That is.
I totally understand that. I totally understand that.
The like the thing we're gonna see is that like America is ripe for revolution because the most oppressed minority has access to I think I could safely say
An arsenal.
Ludicrous amounts of weaponry.
Yeah.
But
I mean, the guy I do a podcast with is, as I said, he's a sort of libertarian guy from California, and he's rational on a lot of things, so long as you keep him away from economics. But one of the few things he is irrational on, in my view, is the Second Amendment. And I'm just, I've never understood this fixation on Americans and guns. I've never ever understood it. I never will understand it. It's a cultural thing that I just will not get to grips with. But as long as you've got sound-minded people, otherwise, that are as passionate about the Second Amendment as they are, you are never ever going to change things. It's just not going to happen.
I think
as much as people push for gun control, it's just never going to happen.
Yeah, I agree. I think gun control is a dead element on the left. I think the idea, like some of the suggestions that the left has made, like the mandatory waiting period, the just solidifying the
illegalizing assault rifles when we already know, and this is again that town hall that Marco Rubio is involved in with the Parkland kids.
Yeah,
Marco Rubio, I hate to say it, but he actually had a really good point. One of the things that will happen with the assault rifle ban is people will just get around it by modifying the guns. It's so easy to do because of the way that they're classified. Yeah.
So so coming from someone who grew up in a rural area with a lot of virulent gun support, even on the left, I'm kind of outre with my support of individual firearms. It's an element of faith. The bottom the 1% believes that as long as they have their guns, America cannot be a fascist state. Because if it was a fascist state, they would overthrow it with their guns. And because they have not overthrown it with their guns yet, it means America's not a fascist state. This is a loop. This is the trap that American gun supporters fall into, is that they're waiting for jackboot Nazis to show up when in fact we have Nazis.
That was the big argument, wasn't it? That if the Japanese invaded the West Coast, that they would be beaten by the armed civilian population.
Yeah, that is the major lie that justifies this right-wing nut job paranoia.
Because they miss the point that to beat an army, you have to have tanks, not just handguns. That doesn't work.
Yes, exactly. It's
a stupid point.
Yeah, if the Second Amendment covered Predator drones and Abrams tanks, I wouldn't have a problem with it. But like, America is not a nation of Tony Starks. America is a nation of like miser, like fucking Ebenezer Scrooges with an arsenal that could wipe out a quarter of the country.
Yes.
Yeah, it's that it's like you see in a lot of like prepper communities where the expectation is the social order is going to break down and then they will need their guns to protect them, which just flies in the face of anthropological proof that the only superpower human beings have is collaboration. Like to put it in a really stupid term, the Avengers are great not because they're a bunch of assholes with superpowers, but it's because they work fucking together. They work together.
Yeah,
that's what makes them great. And
this is why conservatives can never build a movement, because conservatives are ideologically opposed to collectivism. This is why the Labour movement and the Conservative Party are separate, because conservatives just cannot grasp the idea of getting together for a common goal. It's all about, oh, I support this party because they happen to believe in the same things I do, or broadly support the same things I do, as opposed to, I have joined this party to make them believe the same things I do. Not in an authoritarian way, but in a democratic way, of course. But you get my drift.
Nah, I think America is authoritarian to a degree that.
Oh yeah, but I'm talking about politics and different parties and ideology. Ideologies, as opposed to status quo.
Yeah.
What? So some dodgy band from the 80s status quo.
70s. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So let's we're gonna move on further, but we also need to talk about inequality, because you know that's my thing, right? So with this is something I wrote back in February, I think, and it was my introduction to Captain Swiss's stream, basically. With the events in Florida recently, I thought I would chip in my thoughts. Everybody's talking about a blanket ban on guns in the USA. Now, I never thought I would say this, but I really don't think this is a solution to the issue affecting American society. Nick Edgar and I have, as another friend of mine, I've had many conversations on this issue, and I do respect the an American right with sound body and mind to bear arms as expressed within the Constitution. I do, however, feel that regulations on owning guns should be more tighter, and the online and gun show loopholes need to be closed. I mean, honestly, guys, that's some shit you need to sort out.
It's fucking terrifying.
It
is.
I mean, that's something that, what is it, 96% of the population support at this point. It's such a big group of the American population that back it.
Yeah. So, I do have some ideas about how that could be done, but that's another fucking can of worms. The USA does have a problem with gun violence, but I feel if it wasn't guns, then it would be knives. If it wasn't knives, then it would be motor vehicles. My point being is that sick, deranged people will find a sick and deranged things to do. See fan attack near London's Finsbury Park Mosque. Okay, what's his name, Mr. Osborne?
Not even just that. I mean, look at the massive rise in crime in London right now, and I know that there are all sorts of factors for that. But again, if they had access to guns, it would be shootings.
Yeah, I know.
Rather than stabbings.
We currently have a stabbing epidemic in the in London. Is something that I wrote. This
is
in
like the whole UK. It's not just London.
This is back in February. The TLDR is gun controls ban will not be a silver bullet.
No.
It is a mere sticking plaster over a much greater issues in the US and society. And until these issues are addressed, you can expect more violence, even with said measures in place. Until you address the social economic factors of what's really going on in the US, then yeah, violence is just getting
social economic. Yeah, I think cultural is a big part. I mean, look at look at whenever you have a mass shooting in the States and there happens to be video footage of it, look at how the US networks respond to that. MSNBC, which is the left-leaning news outlet in the States, for those that don't know, well, the supposed left-leaning news outlet in the States, it isn't really.
By Americans, definitely.
They essentially ran almost on loop footage and audio of the Parkland shooting.
Yeah,
over and over and over again for a good few days. It wasn't even just like the day after. It was for almost the entire week. And that's sick. And that breeds copycatism in sick people. It's not healthy. If you look at the way British media covers these sorts of things, how often do we do that? I mean, we did it a little bit. But it was more as this is what happened. Yeah, we won't show that again for another few hours. The US media were using it as B-roll while they were sitting there talking about it. You're like, what the fuck is wrong with you?
Yeah, I don't know if y'all have this expression out in magical socialist healthcare land, but if it leads, meaning like America is a bloodthirsty fucking country. You can see it in our media, you can see it in our movies, you can see it in our video games.
You can see it in your history. Like, I mean, the genocide that actually in creating the country that is the US.
Multiple genocides, like starting off.
But then that doesn't always carry, because I mean, Australia was almost worse than the US with their genocidal tendencies when they became a nation. But they are not as bloodthirsty as the US by quite a way.
No. So, is it
doesn't always carry.
Is it bad form to say that the USA is a racist endeavor?
Nope. No, I'd say that is an understatement, if anything. You've got to remember, it's not just the indigenous Native Americans that we murdered. I personally had the pleasure of growing up that's from Indian Massacre Road. Like that's how we remembered the fact that we murdered people to get here. We also had chattel slavery, which I think was violent and inhumane to a degree unseen in other colonial powers. Not to mention the more recent internment of Japanese Americans during World War II. The
Chinese slavery that went on for building the railroads. That's something that never gets talked about. The Chinese slavery, the Irish slavery that there was for quite a long time in the 1700s and 1800s. Irish were viewed as slaves. That's something that we don't think about because it doesn't compute. It doesn't compute with the narrative of white, not slave, black slave. It doesn't work in our heads, so we ignore that. And I feel sorry for the Irish because their story gets lost in that. So much about America that's so fucked up when you look at their historical. I mean, the fact that they had institutionalized racism that was extremely obvious to the naked eye and to outsiders until the 60s. The rest of the world had moved on to a massive degree. I mean, you can talk about institutionalized racism now and stuff, but it's so much different compared to what it was in the 60s, where it was very, very visible, very different to say anything in the UK, for example.
Yeah, you can,
and that's why there's such a division. That's why there's such a division, which we don't see in this country, and we can never really relate to, between the races. Like when I went to Kentucky for a couple of months a few years ago.
Jesus,
one of the most obvious things. One of the most obvious.
Sorry.
One of the most obvious things to me was how segregated blacks and whites were, and it was. You could tell that I'd run back for decades and decades and decades because they couldn't live together. They weren't allowed to. And because that was such a recent thing, they haven't integrated. And so that's why there's so much animosity between the races compared to here. Here it's more of a class thing. It's more of a religious thing rather than a race thing.
And what's really fucked up about the American left is like a lot of folks like me who are in theory pro-black and pro-reparations are still really fucking racist. Like, I'm no progressive Superman. I have thoughts I shouldn't have that I struggle with on a daily basis. Because
I think everyone does. Be real. even if you say that you don't, everyone does.
Well, this is the thing that I would like to understand. This is a product of the society that you grow up in. You know, we're not born racist. We're not born having, you know, evil thoughts towards someone that is. I mean, granted, you have ignorance. I mean, but that's completely different from racism, actually hatred.
And I think there's a difference between stereotyping and racism as well, because like sometimes stereotypes do come from a real place as well. That's something that people on the left have to acknowledge to a degree.
Indeed, and I think when you talk about pure ignorance, you talk about, you know, what was some of our first conversations together. I was just trying to find out what it's like to be blind, right? It's finding out.
Do you have supersonic hearing was one of the first things you asked. Because it's such a trope. A lot of blind people don't really say anything against that.
But you know, tropes turn into hatred, and this is essentially where kind of these hatreds actually grow from, unless you actually address them head on and say, hey, look, you're blind, right? Does that mean you've got supersonic hearing? You know, and we did remember we did that word association was saying, like, if I say red,
I think of blood because I'm just more
big. If we say blue,
sky.
And I say, like, when was the first time you saw the sky, or like, how do you remember what the sky looks like? You know,
I don't. It's purely because of, like, that's what people say. Oh, the sky is blue. So that's what happens in my brain.
Okay. But then this works on both levels, right? I mean, I do it for my own, so I'm not.
Of course.
So now when I meet a blind person, when I meet a blind person next, right? I'm not going to be as much of a dick as I would have been before, right? Just because I now know, in asking stupid fucking questions, what goes on, right? But you know, we need to open up this dialogue, and we do need to ask stupid fucking questions and not be judged on those stupid questions, because at the end of the day, a lot of the time, us middle class white guys are just thick as shit sometimes.
To bring this back to American politics, one thing I would say that the American left has a real problem with is the identitarian politics issue. This bugs me wherever it is, regardless if it's on the right, the left, whatever. I don't care. My issue is we should be looking for the best candidate, not, oh, we have to have a woman candidate, we have to have a black candidate. Of course, we should be encouraging women, ethnic minorities, etc., to engage in politics. And it's not to say that we shouldn't have a woman leader or a black leader. Of course we should, if that is the right leader. But we shouldn't be excluding the majority for the sake of having a minority leader. And this is something I worry about on the left in the States, because that strand of politics has taken on a vigor and an energy which is quite disturbing. It's worse than here. Go on, Sam.
Oh, so I didn't mean to interrupt. If you
no, you're good.
Oh, I'm going to politely disagree. I think America has a history of systematically excluding women and people of color from power that, like, in a legal sense, that the UK did not have. I understand y'all abolished chattel slavery, I think, 100 years before we did. I'm not totally certain on that, but but
then we never had it to the same degree you did either, so that's different.
Seriously. I think chattel slavery has had an impact on the psychology of Black Americans that is not fully grasped by anybody who is not a Black American. And the simple fact of the matter is that like, politics is not a job that you can go to college for. I think no matter how, like, how do I express this without being a huge racist fuck knob?
Fucking just do it, man.
Yeah, I would vote for a Black American that has not had a single day experience in politics over a Harvard PhD motherfucker.
Oh, I'm not talking about experience. Don't misunderstand me. Okay. I'm saying best candidate. So I'm literally talking about policy. So if you have a black woman who has zero platform, but she is a black woman, but you had a white middle class guy who happened to have a really good platform, are you seriously saying you would vote for the black woman over the white middle class guy? That's my issue.
So the I'm going to address the idea of a zero platform. Is that taken on its face, a black woman has experienced systematic prejudice and systematic oppression that a white middle class guy cannot even fathom. Like, she has had to fight every day for the bare necessities that a white guy would not even notice he was missing. And that being raised in an oppressive environment is a platform, because you've got the personal experience of having grown up with the shortest stick that has ever been handed to a human being on the face of the planet. Basically, I'm going to vote for someone who understands oppression over anything else, because I think that is the primary failing of the Democratic Party, is that they tend to be comfortable white people, or like not even white people, just comfortable in a degree of wealth that other individuals cannot fathom. And like, I voted for Barack Obama twice because I'm not a dipshit. But I think there's going to be a gap between Barack Obama's experience and someone who grew up in the ghetto. Barack Obama did not have an easy childhood. He had to work for everything he had, and he is definitely the least bad president of my lifespan. But
then a lot of Black America backed Clinton over Sanders.
Yeah, and you know,
so by that logic,
I think that's a very sweepery statement that people backed Clinton over Sanders. I think.
No, I'm talking about the South specifically. Yeah. No. Look at the demographics in the primaries. I'm not talking about.
No, I agree with you. Yeah, of course you're right. Yeah, of course you're right. Now, we're at 5-3, so we're basically what I was going to do is I was going to end in 5 minutes, but you guys are on fire tonight. Absolutely.
Carry on for a bit longer if you want to. I've got
so I'm wondering, you guys in the side chat, type 1 if you want us to carry on for at least another 30 minutes. I know you've got other appointments, but type 1 if you want us to carry on, if you're enjoying it, because we've just got warmed up, haven't we?
Hell yeah.
Pretty much.
No, I think we're doing well. So yes, type 1. So
I just want to put a question to Sam on something he said a second ago. If that's okay. So okay, I'll take an example and do some hypotheticals with you, just because I'm curious to see where you stand on any of this.
Oh, hang on a minute. We don't deal with hypotheticals.
No. This is important. This is important.
Oh, really? Is it? All right.
Yes, because he'll get where I'm going with this.
Right.
If you had Paula Jean Swearengin in West Virginia, and she was Paul Jean Swearengin, or Paul Swearengin, and you had Joe Manchin, and he was Josephine Manchin. Are you telling me you would vote for Josephine Manchin over Paul Swearengin?
This is going to tip my hand a bit, but I don't actually know who those people are.
Paula Jean Swearengin was a progressive candidate who ran in a primary against Joe Manchin.
America's huge. There is not enough time in the day to keep up with all of the individual.
All right.
Fair enough. Joe Manchin is a guy who regularly votes with the Republicans. He is like the standout Democrat who votes with the Republicans virtually all of the time. Paula Jean Swearengin primaried him as the daughter of a coal miner and was basically running on a Sanders style ticket against him.
Yeah, I would
in the primaries there.
This is something I've had to put to practice. I don't vote for women just because they are women. That's
more what I'm getting at. That's more what I was getting at. That's all.
It's like man, woman, black, white is less of an issue for me than rich or poor. Like, if you grew up on food stamps, with free public schools. That's what I relate to. That's my window of experience. I'm going to vote for the poor candidate 9 times out of 10, just because I'm sick of rich motherfuckers ruining everything. Maybe that's just the whiskey talking, probably. But no, there are, like, I live in I just bought a house in Massachusetts, which has a reputation of being one of the more progressive states in America. There are plenty
keeps electing Republicans.
Yeah, that keeps electing Republicans. Fucking Scott Walker. No, that's Wisconsin.
No, so Scott is something. I know who you're talking about though, because
Brown.
didn't he just he got re-elected in the primaries there by Democrats?
I wouldn't be surprised. Yeah. Scott Lively, who was charged with war crimes in Uganda for his treatment of gay Ugandans, won, I think it was 35% of the conservative primary, which does not, like, it's not enough to beat the current governor we've had. But yeah, Massachusetts selects a lot of Republicans. I'm not going to vote for a rich woman just because she's a woman. A poor woman, I'll give her a thought. Like a rich man, probably not.
Because the reason I brought this up is you have a lot of the Clintonite base, and this is a thing I've noticed a lot on social media. I've been called a Russian bot because I fought back against this stuff online before. You have a lot of the Clinton. You have a lot of the Clinton supporters who were coming out saying that you couldn't vote against Nancy Pelosi because Nancy Pelosi is a woman, and that is literally the only reason they were giving, was that you couldn't vote for Nancy, you couldn't vote against Nancy Pelosi because she is a woman, and that's dangerous. That's straight up dangerous.
Oh, hang on.
Yet Nancy Pelosi.
There are parallels, and again, I always.
Well, I was just going to say Nancy Pelosi refused to back Ocasio-Cortez, even though her supporters are saying that they should back her because she's a woman. It's stupid.
You know, there were writers in the Guardian when it came to the first leadership election in the Labour Party.
Yes.
There were writers in the Guardian that were saying you should vote for Yvette Cooper. Why? Because
she's a woman.
A woman. Yeah. No, there's no talk of sorry, mate. There's no talk of policy or what their stance are on austerity or how they want to actually change things. You know, it's just because she's a woman. Now, okay. Now I've been thinking about this a long time, so it's please understand if I do start spinning a bit, right? Now, here's the thing, right? Is it sexist for a woman to say that she doesn't want to hear about male problems, right? Yes, it could be, but then you haven't had to live under the patriarchy for the last 500 years. Is it reverse racism, right? For a black person to say, you know, all white people get the best jobs? No, it's not, because you haven't been subjected to you know, Jim Crow laws and shit like that, you know.
Yeah.
I mean, so, you know, I'm still trying to get to terms with this myself, and I'm still trying to kind of work out. I'm reading about it and shit. Like, there's a really good book actually that you need to, like I said, I'm going to drop you a link.
Yeah.
Did you ever read the A Color book? Have you read it yet?
I've not got to that yet. I've started on the Philip Webster one, so I've not got to that one.
Oh, really? You started the Philip Webster? What have you seen so far?
I'm really I'm just up to where the Times has come back to life after being dead for a year, so I only recently started it.
Oh, right. It's a great fucking book, man. Really, really great book. But yeah, I mean, for Sam, like A Color is he's an English rapper. He's a hip hop artist.
He's mixed race as well, which is important.
Oh yes, he's half Scottish, half Jamaican. Like fucking how mongrel is that? I mean, for fuck's sake, man.
Oh man, I bet the cooking is amazing though.
Exactly.
True that.
But they have the fucking great food. But he has some The guy's a genius, really. I mean, that's
Agreed.
there's no
I mean,
two
he's
ways.
he's a lecturer at Oxford on ancient African studies. The guy knows his shit.
Yeah, the guy
He
is
knows his shit.
he knows his shit, and he also read his own book, which is I've got plenty of respect for that. So go on.
So I've totally lost track of what your question was. I'm sorry about that.
All I'm saying is, I have no problem with your initial stance on. I would rather go for a poorer person over a rich person, a more oppressed person over a less oppressed person. My concern is the next logical step down that road is blacklisting candidates because they don't fit a certain identitarian sort of criteria. And that's what I'm worried about, because we are in danger then of losing some of the best candidates because we're seeking specific identitarian criteria. And I mean, this is like Chamchi was saying, there are Guardian columnists in the UK saying this about the Labour Party. This is a small issue in the Labour Party, but it's not as bad as the US. The US has this to such a degree now where it's becoming toxic. The UK has this with the Labour Party for things like women-only shortlists, which I'm against, because that's again, you're missing out on good candidates. But this is my issue. I'm all for empowering people. I'm all for having women representatives, women presidents, etc. I don't give a shit what background you come from, so long as you're giving me a good policy good policy platform. If you know your shit, you know what you stand for. Honestly, I mean, Corbyn is a good example of this. He came from a really privileged background. He's not some working class hero, as everyone calls him. He comes from a really privileged background, but he stands up for the working class. Tony Benn was the same. This is not something which I think rich people should be excluded from. I think they should be criticized by all means, and I think we should examine them really, really closely and scrutinize them closely. But just denying them the right to stand or voting against them because of that, I think, is somewhat dangerous.
Yeah, the idea that people are voting for someone just because they're a woman is largely a fiction of the Democratic establishment, folks who are comfortable enough in their social status where that is the deciding factor, where like a person's individual politics are not as important, because no matter who gets elected, you're still going to be wealthy-ish. I've never voted for someone just because they're a woman, or just.
I'm not saying you did it, by the way. Don't confuse.
Sorry,
me.
I'm just drunk.
It's all right.
It's
all
I'm working on getting you shit faced. You know, we're still halfway there, mate. It's still early. It's only 11 o'clock, so there's
What whiskey are you on?
Oh god,
Valentine's.
Oh,
Yeah.
hello.
But the identitarian politics are largely a fiction of the right.
Indeed.
It's people like who are having arguments over how pro-gun is not pro-gun enough. Like even the 3-day waiting period is considered an assault on our fucking freedoms, which is just a ludicrous display at its face. I don't really consider that to be a factor in progressive politics.
I don't think it's a factor much in real progressive politics. My worry is it's a factor in democratic politics, and that's what I'm getting at. We could lose good progressives off the back of this identitarian nonsense. That's what I'm getting at, and I don't think it's a fiction. I think there is a percentage of the democratic base which believes this stuff. Not a large one. Don't get me wrong. I don't think it's a majority, but there is a percentage out there that does believe this shit.
One of the key factors here is to remember that just because someone has is a Democrat does not mean they are pro working class.
Of course.
Yeah. If someone is choosing between two people and like defaulting to gender, that is an indicator that they are of a certain social class that is beyond the day-to-day material concerns.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll vote for a poor white man if he's got a better
policy platform
than like a rich.
Yeah. Sorry, I didn't mean for us to get bogged down in this. It was just
sorry.
But it bothers me.
The idea that people are voting for black women just because they are black women is largely a fiction of the right-wing media sphere.
Yeah.
To be totally true, there aren't a lot of black women running for politics, flat out. The black women that are running on politics on a right-wing platform are Omarosa, I think.
Omarosa, she's not running at all.
Yeah, that's kind of a joke. Fell flat. But like, I'm really...
We've not sorted out your sign yet. That was supposed to be a joke.
Yeah. I really don't think that's something that's worth worrying about. If what somebody stands for is really the deciding factor. By UK standards, Obama is a center-right politician. He
easily.
But he run on a center-left platform.
I mean, yeah, I'm gonna
I would say that even his center-left platform that he ran in 2008 is center-right in the UK.
Yeah. But the way, like the disconnect between the rich America and the poor America is really best summarized in our media, which like either crucified or elevated him as a socialist king because of the simple fact that he did not actively hate poor people as like the central pillar of his campaign. And would
you accept that in America socialist means something different to in Europe?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Because this is something I keep arguing with my English friends over on a regular basis. Oh, socialist, democratic socialist. Oh, that's awesome, democratic socialist. I'm like, hang on, hold your fire. This isn't actually a democratic socialist. This is what we would call a social democrat at best.
Yeah.
Like Ocasio-Cortez.
I'm basically a communist, you fucking idiot.
See, I would say in the UK I would identify as a social democrat, whereas in the States I would probably be a democratic socialist. Yeah. Because that's where the line is.
The Overton window, the idea of the Overton window. I mean, it's smooth, it's fluctuating, it's fucking liquid, right? So I mean, the idea is that we aspire to. But in the UK, we're very much more polarized than what it is in the USA. And
I would definitely say by UK standards, I'm to the right of Chamchi by a decent margin. But I'd say me and you are broadly similar in the US.
Dude, fucking Lennon's to the right of me, for fuck's sake. But yeah, are we done on this? So can we move on?
I think so. Do you want to check the side chat?
I want to address something that's cropped up in the chat. Cameron Hickman brought up the Democrats before the 1960s was the party of the Deep South and more racist than the Republicans. That's a really common talking point among American conservatives. Basically, the Democrat-Republican label is one of convenience at the moment. As I've said before, it's just two different coins of the same group of rich motherfuckers.
Two different sides of the same coin.
What did I say?
Two different coins of the same side.
Fucking Valentine. You are dangerous. This is sheer poison.
Keep talking. Yeah. No, you're doing well.
Cameron Hickman is in a historical sense correct.
Of course he is, because he's a fucking genius. Actually, he's our resident genius.
Cameron. He's our history buff. He knows his shit.
The one thing I'm going to interject is that when people bring up like the history of the parties, it's kind of a distraction from the current dynamic. Yes, there is a percentage of, we like to call them Dixiecrats south of the Mason-Dixon line, who were pro-slavery. That is a valid fact.
Switched the Republican Party, didn't they? A majority of them did.
Yeah, absolutely. Absorbed, I would even say, beyond the Republican Party into kind of like a Christian American fascist party which I
Yeah.
think we're going to see rise to ascension after
Well,
Trump.
the Republican Party has become that now. I mean, there is no old school Republican Party left.
Yeah, there really isn't.
Really?
It's
Was it? There's no Republican Party left, or is there no Republican Party right?
both. Why choose? It's
Someone apparently Rebecca's shouting at me from the other room. Someone's asked me a question in the side chat, which I've missed.
Right. They're gone. Address it. Go on, Matt.
I don't know. I don't know what it is. I sort of heard Rebecca
do
shouting at me
you
from the other
want
room
us to
about
find it?
Please.
The history of the party is actually fairly irrelevant in the face of what they stand for now. Modern slavery has a few stalwart pillars. For example, prison slavery, mass incarceration. If you're the organization supports mass incarceration in America is slavery. The 13th Amendment abolished slavery except for people who are imprisoned. So if you are a party that is in favor of imprisoning people, that's the slavery party. If you're a party that supports keeping wages low, that's the slavery party. The Democrats, for all of their failings, and I'm not excusing a single one of those failings, are, by American standards in 2018, the anti-slavery party. That is this is not as marked a difference as it should be, but bringing up the history is generally seen as like a distraction from the current dynamic.
Fucking second that, man. Cheers. Yeah, definitely.
Rebecca came in and read the question that somebody asked me.
I couldn't find it. I was actually going to ask.
Bazza apparently asked me, do I think that everybody that's in American politics right now has got there because of their policies? No, I wasn't saying that. What I'm saying is, okay, on the left, we need to be careful that we are not. All the point I was making was that on the left, we need to be careful that we're not voting for somebody based on who they are rather than what they believe in. That's all I was getting at.
I don't think that happens.
Well, I think this is something I wanted to bring up. I mean, and this is something that the Tories. Do you know Tories? Tories, is that a term?
I'm honestly not.
They don't say that. It's the Conservative Party here. We call them the Tories. It's an old name.
Yeah, it's so it was a slight. So let's can we give basically it was a party founded on landed gentry.
Yeah, that's going to be the issue right there.
Okay, so the thing is with the Tory party is they've when we talk about IDPA or identity politics, they've had now their second female prime minister.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, what's interesting, or what's most interesting about this? Why are you typing, by the way?
Someone asked me a question.
Yeah, I know. Well, we'll read them out, man. You can read them out. Like,
Chamchi's reading.
Oh,
you can't ask him to read out when you're talking.
I know. Okay, so let me finish my point. Okay, so the thing is about the most. We're supposed to say. And this is something that they really dig at the Progressive Party about, Labour Party being a progressive party, Tory party, small c conservative, and big C conservative. Oh, we've had two female leaders, prime ministers, prime ministers. And how many female prime ministers do you have? Yes, yet these two female prime ministers are two of the most regressive shitlords that I've ever fucking
of course
had the nightmare to actually live under over my entire fucking life.
And here's the thing I was kind of
Thatcher,
with the
Thatcher and Reaganomics.
Fuck Thatcher. Fuck Reagan.
Don't fuck Thatcher. That's scary. Oh god.
Oh mate, necrophilia.
If she pays, whatever.
Oh no.
Necrophilia. Mate, and we were talking about money. We did stroke. on the Gini coefficient earlier, I mean, all those that sort of debate midweek with James, you'll know that I spoke about the Gini coefficient and the unequal societies. Now, most people think that the inequality actually stems from the financial crash in 2008, and in fact, that's actually wrong. It actually stems from
emphasized
the Reaganomics in the 1980s.
Oh, it comes from way before that. If you really want to go back far enough, it comes from way before that.
No, I actually have a thing on the thing, but you know, it actually started in the early 80s. That's when the Gini coefficient went really fucking mad. But yeah.
I
have a reference for this, by the way. But go on.
Just to finish my point off, basically, all I'm talking about to Baz's point, or to what Baz is asking me, the amount of people who voted against Bernie Sanders in the Dem primary, and we're talking about electing a woman and voting because Clinton is a woman. That's more what I'm getting at. And I know it's a small. Before Sam comes back at me again, I know it's a small percentage, if not non-existent, but it is there. It does exist, and it is mostly in the sort of the liberal elite areas, so like New York City, California, places like that. That's what I'm getting at. That's what bothers me. But anyway, Sam, you were going to respond to somebody else, I think, as well.
The like the Democrats that have the freedom to vote for someone just because they're a woman are also the ones that have outsized media influence. That being said,
Hi, Mika. How are you?
What were you going to say?
What I want to do is actually, I want to actually prove what I was saying earlier, and that inequality and how shit things have got has actually got worse since the 80s, rather since 2009. I actually have a graph to prove this. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to share my screen. So this is going to be really fucking weird. But this is called the Gini coefficient. Okay. Now, the Gini coefficient is kind of a weird way of calculating ideas and what makes a society survive. Now, if you look at the Reaganomics and the Thatcher reign, so it's the getting rid of the ideas of Keynesian economics and actually bringing in Hayekian economics, so disaster capitalism, which is during the early 80s. If you look at 1981 there, right, which we're on, and then it like 83 climbs up, 87, and it fucking jumps all the way up to 32.
That's when I was born.
Yeah. This is the thing. And again, how to read this graph is if you a Gini coefficient of 1.0 is the most unequal society ever. A Gini coefficient of 0.0 is the most equal society ever. So you know, and this is in the UK and the US, you know. And so if you're looking at 1989, 1981, we're peaking, right? And when it comes to 2008, 2010, yes, it does peak again, but it's getting it's stale. It's stale.
I think the main reason the Gini coefficient is not spiking is because America has run out of markets to exploit. That global capitalism has just hit a wall where there is no new colonies to build. There is no new mineral wealth to extract via slave labor. We are seeing a calcifying of the system that has been established over the previous 4 decades. Yeah, that's, you know, it's like the before we were talking about the 5 main questions. The people aren't being represented, they're being managed. That's the kind of system we are running to, where there's, you know, as a global society, we're settling into one of profound class distinction. And I think a lot of the violence you're seeing in America, be it incels like ramming buses into people because Jordan Peterson said so, or ultra right-wing nationalists, you know, setting up heavily armed checkpoints in order to murder cops. That is how the West, like how the mid-decline West expressed frustration. It's you know, we are killing anyone we possibly can, because the concept of expressing violence against the 1% is unheard of, because America has this idea that anyone can join the 1% if they work hard enough.
This is the idea of the American
why you
dream,
have so
isn't it?
many poor. That's why you have so many poor people who vote Republican, because they don't want to. They don't want to cut off the capitalist, the capitalist system, because they think that maybe they can make it one day. That's
Exactly.
the oldest trick in the playbook, isn't it?
Indeed. So we've got like we've extended by 30 minutes, and to be honest, this has been great fun. With
Definitely need to do this
Sam.
again.
We do need to do this again.
We need to get Sam involved in our little.
I told you, yeah. We apparently you're an active person on Twitter, apparently. So what's your Twitter handle?
So I have an artist name that I do slam poetry under and write a few things. It's Malt Schlitzman, like Walt.
I followed
Whitman,
you on Twitter. Yeah, I got you.
Thank you. Yeah. Follow me now
Schlitzman.
before I delete everything I've ever posted on the off chance that I get arrested for it. But yeah, basically the concept that we are directing violence against ourselves. Like incels running buses into motherfuckers, people gunning down children. The people doing that are people like me, just because we don't have a class consciousness built into our society like you do in England, where it's stuff like Patrick Stewart has to change the voice he uses to address people, because otherwise he will get treated poorly because of it. America is not a classless society. America is a mannerless society. And I think we're going to see that violence escalate, and it's going to be unfocused and unproductive violence, because we are too unequal. People at the bottom of society cannot provide for themselves, and they are going to express that via violence, because America does not have a culture of solidarity. Our organized labor is very weak. Our connections, like our concept of social structure, is very weak. So like a poor white person and a poor black person are not going to see eye to eye, because the poor white person is going to think they are still superior. They are going to believe that the system of white supremacy will benefit them.
And that is because you have been segregated for so long.
Yeah, basically.
Which is here, it's class versus class. Rather than race versus race. That is the problem here. I mean, it's still, we still have the risk of violence here, but it's on a very different plane.
Yeah,
it's not for the same reasons.
Yeah, something that Connor just brought up. Many working class people in America are very conservative minded, especially when it comes to religion, because the working class and the poor are hand in hand. It's the same group of people. The working class does not have enough to like they don't believe they have enough to feel solidarity with people below them. It's very much a catch as catch can society. Like if you don't hold on tightly to what you have, it will be taken away. The media tells you it's going to be taken away by poor people. It's not. It's going to be taken away by fucking Elon Musk.
Elon Musk. Man.
The thing that struck me the most when I went to the States, and this was in New York, this was in Kentucky, this was in Florida, the three places I spent time in.
Proper Southern, though, like proper Southern.
The places where I spent time, I noticed, and even in New York City, this was the same. The way that homeless people are treated and viewed by society is so different to here, because here it's, oh, you're down on your luck, whereas in the States it's, oh, you're vermin, and that's really, really scary.
So considering we were having a bit of a Tony Benn love in earlier, Do you know the Tony Benn Loving on Refugees? He said, it's interesting to note what or how the government treats refugees, because if they had the chance, they would treat everybody else the same way.
That is exactly happening in America right now. People of Latinx descent, people who don't look white in the border states on the South, are being disenfranchised on a massive rate. I think in like an actual country like England, there would be war crime proceedings or crimes against humanity.
Yeah. Indeed.
But it is a massive push against anyone who is not a white-skinned American. And it's fucking terrifying. Because
and even with that, to end on a high note, even with that, Beto O'Rourke is doing way, way better than anybody expected.
Yeah.
Even with all that disenfranchisement.
We're already running off. So right, we got 3 minutes left. Right. What I wanted to do is open it up to the side chat. Do you have any questions for Sam, of course, Matt, or myself, or anything that we want to talk about together? I mean, my question is actually before we move on, is I want to talk about your political compass and where you sit politically. I mean, this is an interesting question, and I was saving it for Sam because it's 8 years since we last spoke. Right? 8 years since we last spoke, and he doesn't know that I've become a communist. He doesn't know. He doesn't know, right? So I'm actually just breaking the news to him now. I'm basically a communist, right?
You are basically one step away from a communist.
Yeah, well, one step away. It's fucking close though.
Yeah.
So yeah, I would say I'm a Marxist, Trotsky, right? I'm not sure about Trotsky because I'm more of an evolutionary ideals rather than revolutionary ideals. So I'd like to do it in a peaceful means. But yeah, I mean, how do you feel about
and where are you at, Sam?
And where you at, Sam? Yeah, exactly.
Definitely agree. Jeremy Corbyn is an absolute unit.
Yes.
Yeah, definitely.
Indeed.
I am of the opinion that that the wealth should be nationalized and used to improve the lives of the least. The only moral metric by which a country exists is how well does it provide for the people who cannot provide for themselves. That's fucking it. That's it. Bar none. Fuck your religion. Fuck your whatever other thing. If you aren't making things better for people below you, you are not a moral person.
So I'll read it. You just fucking hold the mic. Okay, so Sam, were you forced to take your shoes off when entering Champion's house?
I was not forced. I chose to.
Yeah.
I choose to abide by the manners of the country in which I am residing, and that means like I'm not gonna America everything. I'm not here to build cheeseburger factories in a place that has not had cheeseburger factories. I believe that the world is too big a place by which one moral standard rules.
Can I address that as well? That thing about taking your shoes off. Now the thing is, it is a custom in Asian households that you take your shoes off before you enter the house, and also in restaurants and sometimes in some schools too, right? And it's I think it's something it becomes quite endearing after a while, right? Yeah.
Frankly, I think the West is wrong.
Yeah.
I think
no, seriously.
Because you were just having the conversation about communism and socialism, and now you're saying the West is wrong. That's why I'm laughing.
I think the West has a lot to learn from countries like Korea, China, Japan, the Southeast Asian countries. That if you examine how labor breaks down, wearing your shoes in the house is a huge source of labor. Like it takes a lot to clean up after that. And it's not difficult to take your shoes off.
Yeah, it's not an issue, man. Just take your shoes off.
Yeah.
Take your shoes off.
The other question I keep seeing in the side chat, or I saw earlier in the side chat, is does Chamchi live in a wardrobe? Because you have so many clothes everywhere. This was like a thing that I kept seeing come up in the side chat.
She knows how to dress well.
This is my office, and it's also you know, like where a lot of things go on. This is where
He does his streams live from a walk-in wardrobe. Everyone, this is a thing.
No, it's my office. Actually, it just so happens that my office is part of my wardrobe.
G Whistler asks a question: why would you trust the state to do this?
Sorry, G. Now,
Context.
now, G Whistler is a very interesting kind of.
He's an anarchist communism, isn't he?
He's an anarchist, right?
Yeah.
G. So please, can you clarify the question?
So there's like when you're dealing with folks like me who are talking about the state as an organization, ideally government is the way by which all of us come together and agree which is the best way to do things. That's not how it works in the West currently. Right now, the government is as a group of rich people who are agreeing how to oppress the poor the best. I don't trust the state to do most things. When I talk about like my ideal future, it is one where the government is actually representative, which is not what we have right now. What was the other question? Oh, so does UN think about the America has a history of war crimes, which I don't shy away from. I think we owe reparations to Black Americans. We owe a huge debt to Black Americans. We owe a huge debt to Chinese immigrants for building the infrastructure of our country. And I think the only way those can actually be realized is by massive cash redistributions from motherfuckers like Elon Musk and Peter Thiel. Basically, there needs to be a maximum wage. There needs to be a cap at which capital can no longer accrue to one single person. Or
what do you think of Eisenhower's tax situation? His flat tax
95%. I think it needs to be 95% on the top 1%. I think the only way we are going to get a society where people are not just itching for an excuse to kill each other is by providing for the basic necessities of the global population.
Okay. Moving on.
So you have an American socialist arguing for a policy that a Republican brought in the 50s.
Question from Karen Hickman. It says, when are you going to come out of the closet, Chamchi Gimbab? No, sorry, I'm loving my life in Narnia. Actually, I'm loving it in Narnia.
I'm surprised I'm married to a woman. I didn't see that coming.
The state is a capitalist construct. As long as it exists, oh god, fuck it now. As long as it exists,
capitalism.
Will prevent you from distributing wealth. Yes, exactly. You're exactly right, G. And the thing is, the state generally only exists because it's protecting private wealth. I mean, that's the idea of the state. But when it comes to the state on its redistributive ideas, I think that's where we need it.
Sorry. Does America? So I want to address a question we ignored. Rebecca Jagat.
That's my partner.
Rubicon. Rubicon's question.
Does America have more or less of a racial ignorance problem than the UK? I can't really comment on that. I don't know how racially ignorant the UK is. I know America is back fuckwards ass, and I know that our racial ignorance we are exporting to other countries through our media.
When you say racial ignorance, do you mean ignorance of racial background or ignorance meaning racism? Rebecca's shouting both at me from the other room. I would say that we are less racist than America is by quite a long way. We are much less racist than America, but I would say we are just as ignorant of other people's cultures as America is, but then we are less insulated from the rest of the world than America is.
Can we talk? Sorry. Can we?
I want to answer the question.
Oh, go on.
I think we're both of colonial powers. The UK and US is both where we use our military might to destabilize other countries. I actually had a conversation with a Chinese teenager on my flight to South Korea who was worried about Black Americans because of the images in American media that we portray Black Americans as criminals, we portray them as antagonists. And I think just by dint of America's impact on the rest of the world, we really outclass you when it comes to racial ignorance.
Oh, fuck yes.
Yeah. So, and it doesn't just stop at Black Americans. It's everyone. Anyone who is a convenient scapegoat will find themselves a victim of American.
See, we do it to Pakistanis. We do it to, well, I say Pakistan, the South Asian community generally. We do it to them, I'd say, more than most other racial groups.
Well,
at the moment, anyway.
That's really great. Thank you, everybody. Join us. We did overrun by 40 minutes. Actually.
Oh well.
But it's been honestly, this has been fucking brilliant. We're gonna have to do this again. Sam, you up for it?
I'm up for it. I have no idea what my schedule is going to be like for the next month, but hell yeah.
Hey. Don't you
when you go back to the States, man?
All right. Type 1 if you think Sam should be involved in the Sunday stream.
Yeah, but that's going to be difficult for him because of we're so UK centric.
I'll figure it out.
Which is a shame. Which is a real shame, by the way, because I always want us to do foreign stuff more because I find foreign politics so fucking interesting.
This is exactly why I wanted you, and I specifically chose you. To have this conversation with Sam today. Actually, people want you back, mate. People love you.
All right, I guess I got to join the Bullet Club. I got to bite the bullet.
Yeah, man.
Join the Bullet Club.
Get in it.
And we also need to invite you to the offline bullet chat where people.
But then you are going to be immersed in the world of UK politics. You realise this, don't you?
Yeah. So, no. Okay. So this is one thing before we go, right? And this is, I suppose, the entire point of the entire chat. I suppose it's the rise of the right within the UK because politics in the UK has been very polarized, and so very much left versus right, and also there has definitely been a rise of the socialist left in the UK. You can call it. I know you're a social democrat, but
I completely agree with you. The socialist left is rising in this country for sure.
And what I'm thinking is, and I guess this comes down to the single state socialist warrior thing. They will never survive. But what with Cortez and the guy in Florida, with these pressure groups such as Momentum and the Democrats, the Justice Democrats in the US, which is basically
our revolution, all sorts of different brand new, loads of other ones.
These are movements that are actually growing the left. I mean, a positive message for the lefties from across the waters, across the pond. Can you give us a positive message for the left?
Message.
If you are anything less than already a millionaire, all you have to do to succeed in American politics is listen to the poor. That is all you have to do. Tell them you are going to work for a society where they are not murdered in the street for not already being comfortable. That is all you have to do. That is all there is. There is an electorate. There's a huge population of disenfranchised people who will storm the fucking balustrades for you if they think you are the least bit sympathetic to their cause. And really, that is what is most frustrating about the Democratic establishment, is that they aren't there. You just have to show up. You just
I mean, just look at where Clinton chose not to campaign in 2016. It says everything. It says everything.
Yeah. Bernie succeeded because he showed up in the countries that had the most popular in the states that had the most populous representative, the states that had the caucuses, that have the representation by the 99%. That's all you have to do. That is all. It is like sympathy. It's not even empathy. It's just sympathy. You know, like if you walk past a poor person and you think about giving them money rather than just kicking them in the kidneys, congratulations, you're a socialist. Welcome to America.
Well, yeah.
Everything's fucked.
When it comes to socialism as a thing, I'm gonna have to nail you down. Like, would you call yourself a socialist?
Yeah, every day I call myself a socialist. I teach English as a foreign language, so I have a lot of students from countries that are formerly socialist, now totalitarian regimes. So I'm very cognizant of the fact that that socialism is not a term that is universal. In America, socialism means that you don't want the poor to die because you've killed them.
This is why I said before, in the UK, I don't see myself as a socialist. I'm just ever so slightly to the right of that. But in the US, I would
European sense. I mean, if you were planted in the USA, you would probably be a socialist. Though.
I would be a socialist in the US. Yes, easily. Yeah. That's not even
so Rubicon says hashtag drunk Chamchi. I would like to say that we are drunk and we are fucking loving it. Thank you very much for everybody joining this streaming, and this is a great fucking note to end it. We are socialists. We fucking love it. Thank you to Matthew. Can you please sign off?
I'll see you guys soon.
On the other side, Sam, please sign off.
This is Malt Schlitzman signing off, saying fuck Trump, fuck white supremacy, fuck Nazis, fuck the regressive right wing. All of us prosper or none of us prosper. Solidarity forever for everyone. Socialist Sunday, motherfuckers.
Socialist fucking
Sunday.
All right, motherfuckers. Goodbye.
Wee!